Hey, Rick, what did you eat last night?
I made vegetarian chili. I was very excited because I wanted to make something that I could freeze. And I feel like I've been working on my chili a lot. So first thing I did is I used northern white beans or just general white beans. I cooked the beans in the Instant Pot. It's the first time I've ever cooked beans in the Instant Pot. So that was really fun. And I put the beans in the Instant Pot with a little bit of no beef veggie base from Better Than Bouillon and some thyme and some salt. And they came out really well. I cooked them for about 35 minutes. They were a little mushy, but for the first time using them or cooking them in the Instant Pot, I was so pleased because they were hard, right? Super quick.
And you didn't soak them, right?
No, dry, hard beans. I was completely pleased with how that went down because that's one of the things you told me I would like the Instant Pot for the most when I bought it was for beans because you're right.
Yes.
You don't have to soak them. Then you don't have to deal with boiling them in that filth and that foam that, gathers on the pot and you have to deal with.
Yes, set it and forget it, baby.
And then I basically cut all my stuff up prior, which was really exciting, which I'm never that good about. I'm always a little cocky thinking, I'll start this about the chili. And then, I'll cut things as I go. And then in a pan, I just put red onions, garlic, and a little olive oil for a few minutes. And then once they sauteed, I added a little bit of cumin because I was going to use like a lot of cumin. But when I pulled my cumin out of the closet, I was like, oh my God, I have like a teaspoon of cumin. It's not enough cumin to go around.
Oh, that's terrible. I hate when there's only a teaspoon of cumin.
That was me getting cocky, thinking I had everything I need. I didn't do an accurate check.
Right, because we always have cumin.
Thank you. Thank
you.
I replaced it with coriander, which is not the same, but, in the same family, I would say. And then I used 2 tablespoons of chili powder, and I threw that right into the onions and the garlic. And
that has a lot of cumin in it, so that's good.
So I hopefully think it balanced out. Well, it did balance out okay. So I let them just grill or fry up for a little bit in a pan. And then once that was done, once they grilled for a little bit, I added carrots for a few minutes, and then I added jalapenos for another minute. And then after that, I added a can of diced tomatoes and 2 large portobello mushrooms. And they were the hugest portobello mushrooms in the world. And I cut them into sort of wide chunks because I had this idea in my head that they would maintain a lot of texture and maybe somehow, simulate meat in the ultimate dish. And I used half of a red pepper. And I just got all of that going in the pot and then added a little bit of broth just to deglaze the bottom of the pan. And then I put in a can of diced tomatoes. And as it went along, I brought that to a simmer and I just kept adding more of that sort of no beef veggie Better Than Bouillon base as I went along. And towards the end, I added, what did I add? I added the beans when that simmered for a little bit. I added some Trader Joe's soy rizo and some dried oregano. I had some fresh parsley, fresh cilantro. And then at the end, I just added spinach and I added celery just so they would just soften a little bit. And I added salt. I added salt along all the ways of the cooking, but I just thought it was so good because you know what I did this time, Kate, that I hadn't done in the past? What? I didn't mush all my vegetables. They all had texture. And I was so pleased because I somehow have it in my head that chili has to boil or simmer for a while, and it really doesn't at all.
Yeah, they say it deepens the flavor, but it depends on the type of chili you're making. I mean, I've also never made a veggie chili that had that many kind of vegetables in it. So it's almost like I would call that like a chili vegetable stew, what you made. And also in my veggie chili, I put things like lentils or bulgur or quinoa. Like I put something, a grain or a legume of some kind in there to give it that sort of texture. But you did the whole thing with vegetables, which you don't see very often. So it sounds really great and so healthy.
So healthy. And I think the size of the portobello mushroom and I think the no beef veggie base from Better Than Bouillon really helped get that whole sort of meat texture. And I think the soy rizo brought that out a little bit. So when I was eating, I was like, well, this is sort of the chili I've gotten the closest to tasting what I remember real chili with meat tasting like, It was really, really tasty. Oh, and then I finished it with a little creme fraiche on top.
Creme fraiche.
Say it again.
Creme fraiche.
So funny.
That is a South Park reference, if anybody is wondering.
I love that episode. Brandy's just going on a cooking spur. How about you? What did you eat?
I had fabulous beans and greens.
Really?
Yeah, I used to make this all the time, and I hadn't made it in a while, and I was craving it, and I just needed some greens. So I start with a little bit of bacon, which I chop it up into little pieces and put it in a cold pan and render the fat. And then once the bacon is cooked, I scoop the bacon out, and then I've got a little bit of bacon fat in there, in which I put my sliced onions, and I cook those down a little bit. And then I put in garlic, and I use both chopped garlic and sliced garlic because I like those textures, and some red pepper flakes and salt. And that's basically the seasoning of the dish. So I cook all that up a little bit. Then I put in a ton of kale, which of course I've cleaned and stemmed and ripped into sort of bite-sized pieces. And I coat that, and a little extra olive oil and a little extra salt on top of the kale. Then I use tongs to kind of flip it over and coat the kale in the oniony oil so that it's all kind of covered in that goodness, and I get the onions off the bottom of the pan so they don't burn. So I mix it all together. And then I use chicken stock and a little water and bring it to a boil and then turn it down and cover it, and I let it braise/steam. I always use a Dutch oven to do this, basically until it is tender and to the texture that I want. And that depends a little bit on how I'm feeling. Sometimes I like it less cooked. Sometimes I like it more cooked. So I cook it down, stirring it occasionally and tasting it for seasoning, a little more salt. I add some black pepper at that point. This time I added some of that wonderful savory black garlic salt. I feel like there was one other thing I threw in there, because some more hot pepper flakes, I think. And then at the end, I add either a little sherry vinegar, or this time I added a little bit of actual sherry and some apple cider vinegar. And then I use Goya canned cannellini beans. I'm very brand loyal to Goya when it comes particularly to cannellini beans. They have the texture that I really, really, really like. So I drain them and rinse them, and then they just kind of warm through. So I toss them into warm through, and then I put the bacon back in, and I stir it all together. And it is savory and delicious. I love it.
Two things. All I can imagine is the way the renderings from the bacon infuses that whole dish with flavor. I think that. Mm-hmm. And then remind me what braise means.
Braising is cooking in liquid, basically.
Great.
And I think it implies over a longer period of time, as opposed to like boiling it. But it's cooking something in liquid as opposed to sautéing it.
Wow, that sounds heavenly, I have to say.
And then I either add or steam off liquid to my taste. Like I like there to be a teeny bit of wetness in it. I don't like it to be bone dry, but I also don't like it swimming in liquid the way I believe they're traditionally done in the South. I like them drier than that. And I also like them way less cooked than that. I like my greens to stay al dente.
Right.
So, it's to taste, but yeah, nice. It's one of my favorite ways to eat a lot of greens. If I'm like, I need greens, dark leafy greens, that is my favorite way to have them cooked. If I'm not going to eat them raw.
Heavenly.
Yeah.
Nice. Well done, Kate.
Thank you, Rick. Hello, and welcome to another episode of You Won't Believe What I Ate Last Night. I'm Kate.
And I'm Rick.
And this is our ongoing conversation about food, health, weight management, and our endeavor to be and stay healthy in a really tasty world.
With love, kindness, and compassion towards ourselves and others. Season 5 of You Won't Believe What I Ate Last Night is brought to you by Smart Building Technologies, a leading provider of building automation solutions, bringing smart technologies along with energy savings to the workplace. Find out more at smartbuildingtech.com. That's smartbuildingtech.com.
Today, we're talking about something sacred. Bacon.
Bacon.
As in, everything's better with.
Yeah.
Bacon.
Bacon. I would like to start off, Kate, by saying how much I miss bacon.
I understand. When I was a vegetarian, it was one of the things that lured me back.
Really?
It was, yeah.
I was thinking two things I wrote down here where I miss it in cooking because I somehow still recall the flavor that it would add. particularly with any type you'd render the fat from pork or bacon, anything like that. I really miss the flavor it brings to a dish. And single-handedly, when I smell bacon cooking, it is the meat I miss the most when I smell it being cooked. Quite often I'll walk down my hallway on Saturday and Sunday. I'm like, oh, that bacon smells so good.
It is a little bit mysterious to me why it's as good as it is and why we love it as much as we do. But it is clearly one of America's favorite foods and always had been. Apparently, I love this little piece of trivia that I learned. Somebody, Ebenezer Cook, in 1708, wrote a poem called The Sotweed Factor, which was a satire of life in early colonial America. And at that point in 1708, he already complained that practically all the food in America was bacon infused.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
so
early.
It's before we were a nation. It is in our DNA that we are a bacon loving people.
Oh my God. I love that.
And I'm imagining part of that is because it can be cured and therefore can last. If you are starting a new colony, for example.
And need to survive perhaps a harsh winter.
Exactly. And the history of English bacon goes back a lot further than that, which we will discuss.
Oh, fun. English bacon. I hadn't even thought of that.
Well, because you know how I love my English bacon.
I do know how you love your English bacon.
Apparently, I will just tell you now, the English bacon tradition dates back to the Saxon era in the first millennium AD. English bacon is called back bacon because it does indeed come from the pork loin at the back of the pig.
Oh, really?
Yes, and a lot of Canadian bacon is as well.
Interesting.
American bacon is called side bacon. A lot of it comes from the side of the pig, and much of it is, in fact, also the belly. So it can come from various cuts.
Okay.
But most of the American bacon is not back bacon.
I'm really sensing a preference you have for non-American bacon.
Well, if I were to pick, yeah, they're just so different. Like in England, they call our bacon streaky bacon, so they still have it. But the back bacon, because it's more meaty, has a little bit of the pork belly attached to it. So you get both. You get like a pork belly piece, and then you get like a chunk of meat. So it feels like more like food and less fatty. Because our bacon is so absurdly fatty, I end up throwing away a lot of the package because there's a limit to how much of that fat that I really, well, I'm not going to say want, but I'm going to use. I want to bathe in it and use all of it, but I don't. So I spend a lot of time picking out my bacon. And Canadian bacon, I would think I would like because it's the same thing. It's super lean, but I don't like the way they cure it. I don't like the flavor of it particularly. It's more like ham, which isn't my favorite.
Okay.
But bacon is just salt cured pork. And it can be different cuts of meat from different places with different kinds of curing. But that's basically it. And in Great Britain, they have what are called bacon pigs. There are breeds of breeds of pigs that are made for bacon that they call bacon breeds.
What does that mean? Like, do you know what they look like? Is it sort of the way, what is it? It's veal happens in this country?
No. It's not that they're raised in a particular way. It's that they're bred specifically to produce perfect back bacon cuts.
Wow.
And particularly the famous Yorkshire and Tamworth pig breeds are referred to as bacon breeds. So it has to do with where the animals presumably develop muscle or fat or whatever.
Okay. Interesting. There's a section I was read about how bacon came to the New World, and it said that Queen Isabella sent 8 pigs to Cuba with Christopher Columbus. You know him? He's the guy that, discovered things. But the
Thank God, because there would be nothing here had he not discovered it.
Thank you for picking up on the lead. The National Pork Board credits Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto as the father of the American pork industry.
Really?
He brought 13 pigs to the shores of the New World in 1539.
13.
13. Within 3 years, his herd had grown to 700. Native Americans reportedly fell in love with the flavor and readily accepted pigs and pork products as peace offerings. So not only did we bring them as peace offerings, we ruined their diet. By 1653, a rapidly expanding, free-roaming, and unruly swine population nearly thwarted Dutch construction of a wall on Manhattan Island meant to keep the British and Native Americans out of New Amsterdam. This site became known as Wall Street. Pigs continued to run wild in New York City into the 19th century.
I'm still wrapping my brain around the fact that there were 13 pigs that originated all of the pigs in our country. That is absolutely amazing.
13. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And the fact that they were running wild in New York in the 1800s is nuts. Or I guess the beginning of the 1800s. That's very shocking. What are your thoughts on veggie bacon?
Well, Kate, it's funny you say that. I have 2 brands of veggie bacon in my refrigerator currently that I bought because I wanted to taste test them. Do you remember I told you like a couple months ago I was revisiting my toilet paper selection because I was going through all sort of the natural forms of toilet paper to see if they've made any progress, if they've come any farther than they were, and they actually all don't feel like sandpaper. Mm-hmm. I did that, and that was an epic failure. They're all still pretty terrible. So I'm going through this phase where I'm just starting to do that, to revisit all the veggie bacon options out there. So there's one called Sweet Life, I believe is the name of it, that I really, really love because I took it out of the package and I ate it. And I was like, oh my God, I actually accidentally bought real bacon instead of fake bacon because I buy it in a store that sold both. So that's the one that I find has come the closest to the initial taste of it. It certainly doesn't have the texture the way regular bacon does, but that's the closest I found. So I have 2 packets of veggie bacon. I got to find some tomatoes and some lettuce because I really want to try BLTs. That's my new thing. But I think so right now I'm going to say it's come a long way from when I tried it. And I pretty much stayed away for a good 5-7 years, a long time.
Yeah. When I was a vegetarian, it was a disaster. I mean, I would still sometimes use it out of desperation, but boy, was it a bummer. It was better in a microwave, I remember. It would crisp up and have some texture.
And this is one of those things you and I often talk about, that we shouldn't call it bacon. Just the way spaghetti squash shouldn't be called spaghetti squash. It's not spaghetti. It doesn't hold together like spaghetti. It doesn't taste like spaghetti. Don't call this bacon. Just call it something else. That's
so true. Because if you don't set yourself up for that, you're not going to be disappointed.
Exactly.
What about bacos, like bacon bits that are made of soy? Those were a staple in my household growing up.
I have gone through 2 brands, both of which I hate because I buy them for my salads and I can't stand it. They're the thing that still to me tastes the fakest of any of the sort of bacon products out there.
I think it's the same thing. Like if you don't pretend it's bacon, like my mother still loves those on her baked potatoes because it's just a thing she likes on a baked potato.
Yes, totally.
But she would never actually cook bacon and put it on a baked potato, but she likes her bacon bits.
Totally.
The fake ones, specifically the ones made of soy, I'm pretty sure bacon, yeah. I've never been a big turkey bacon fan. Again, just don't pretend it's bacon. It's just not.
Exactly.
It's a different kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
My favorite bacon, and has been for a while, is Trader Joe's uncured apple smoked bacon. And it doesn't have any nitrates or nitrites in it, which we'll talk about in a second, or any preservatives. And I discovered it the way one discovers so many wonderful things, is that I was standing at Trader Joe's one day years ago looking at the bacon, trying to pick one. And this woman came up and she grabbed this one. She goes, oh, this is the best one. I've tried every bacon here. I'm a real bacon aficionado. This is the best bacon. I was like, cool, thank you. So I tried it. And sure enough, she was right. And it comes in a stack of bacon. Like the slices are stacked up instead of spread out as they often are, you know. And I keep the whole stack in the freezer. And I rarely have a slice of bacon. That's not how I typically eat it. I chop it up and put a little bit in something, like the beans and greens I talked about at the beginning of this episode, for example. Like a little bit for flavor is how I typically use it. So I'll just cut a piece off and chop it up and leave it in the freezer. So it's an effective way for me to store it and have it always on hand.
God, that sounds perfect. And to just be able to pull out.
Yeah. And I can just put the tiniest bit in, the equivalent of not even a slice, although I probably usually do at least a slice, just to flavor something.
All right. How are you cooking bacon? Because I know how my girlfriend, Rachel Ray, likes us to cook bacon nowadays. But could you talk a little bit about cooking bacon? Because I remember when I cooked bacon, you threw it in a pan and it would just get all disgusting. and just the pan would get filled with grease and it would just be all weird. And I never particularly liked it. Then I went through a phase where when the microwaves came out, there's a specific pan for making bacon in the microwave, which would be slanted. It'd have little crevices so that when you microwave the bacon, the fat would run down and be collected. What are you doing?
So I think you mean if I'm cooking whole slices, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So I used to use the pan method. That's how I was raised. And then I learned from a friend's husband at one point a good way to do that, which involves actually cooking the bacon in the fat, which is called confitting. So when you confit something like duck confit, it means you cook it in its own fat. And ironically, cooking something in its own fat draws more of the fat out of it. So even though the process can be disgusting, it renders more of the fat and leaves the thing leaner and crispier. But it's still messy and gross in the pan. So I do the oven method, but I put tin foil on the pan and I lay the strips of bacon on the foil in the pan. And the one that I use tend to be thick strips. So this works really well for that. If it were thinner, I might have to rethink, but these happen to be thick cut, the one that I use. And so I don't like the rack method where the fat drips off because I think it's actually a better result if you let the bacon cook in its own fat.
Interesting.
And then if you want to pour that fat into a jar and put it in your refrigerator when it's done, you then have bacon fat in your fridge. Hypothetically, I've read about it. That you then have.
I remember you pulling your jar of bacon fat out one time when I was there. It looked really good.
Totally. Because you can't just throw it. Yeah, you can't just throw it down the sink. You do have to put it somewhere. And then you're like, well, I don't want to throw this out. So, I don't use it very often, but it's there for if you need it in a pinch because it's so amazing to cook like potatoes in or an egg. My God, it's so nuts.
So the foil that you put it on the pan, is that served just to help collect the fat a little bit more so it can cook in it?
It's to aid in cleanup as much as anything else. And I think it probably helps prevent burning a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah.
Interesting.
I'm betting Rachel Ray says to use a rack. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is another common way I see is to put the rack on the pan in the oven.
Yeah. I'm just listening to it and I'm like, oh my God, it sounds so good.
It is so good.
One of the things I was reading said there's two main reasons that we like bacon so much. It's salty. So salt is something everyone craves. It's an electric light that helps maintain your body fluid. So that's why people like bacon so much. And they also said it's a cheap source of protein. But do you find bacon cheap nowadays? Like good bacon?
Not the kind I buy.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Like there's way cheaper proteins out there. It did used to be cheaper. It's true.
Right. But now we've had such a fat bacon revolution. It's in everything.
Totally. And I have a list of things that are bacon themed that I would like to share with you
awesome.
in a moment. But first, I'm dying to say this. I learned something. My favorite thing I learned in this whole researching this episode is the origin of the expression "bring home the bacon." Did you see this?
No, I did not.
Okay, so
I did. I'm sorry. Yes, I did see this. I'm sorry.
Okay,
go ahead.
So I always assumed it had something to do with bringing home money. But it turns out that in 12th century England, in the spirit of matrimonial harmony, a church in the town of Dunmow promised a filch, which is a side of bacon, to any married man, of course it was the man, who could swear before the congregation and God that he had not quarreled with his wife for a year and a day. So a husband who could bring home the bacon was held in high esteem by the community for his forbearance, self-control, and patience.
Oh, and I'm sure that related directly to how docile the woman had to be.
Right. Well, it doesn't matter because we know she's a raging bitch. He is the one who demonstrated forbearance, self-control, and patience by not arguing with her. I think that's the point. He's the winner.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
He's the winner. Yeah.
Here's the good things about bacon. It does have some good vitamins in it, some niacin and things. It can help with a hangover. And apparently it's good for babies' brain development in utero. And it's healthier than sausage. That's pretty much all I could find.
That's good. I didn't even find that. All right. That's something. We'll take it. It's just one of those things. Super tasty, super flavorful, but you have to remember to sort of eat in moderation because a lot of it could probably do a lot of damage pretty quickly.
Yeah. So it's hugely high in saturated fat, which is cholesterol, obviously salt. Most bacon, unlike mine, contains nitrates and nitrites, which are preservatives that can cause cancer. Cured meats in general apparently can lead to chronic pulmonary disease. And in general, people who eat processed meats tend to die quicker. Cancer, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, colorectal cancers, a whole bunch of stuff. But it's a little bit unclear how much of that is just bacon and how much of that is the lifestyle choices associated with people who eat bacon.
I'm going to say there might be a correlation.
Yeah, there might be. There might be. And one of the people said that one of the reasons bacon is so American is that in this health conscious society, eating bacon is like a middle finger. Like,
oh, how funny.
Yeah, of what's healthy and holy.
I get that. I get that.
Totally. There's a book called Sex and Bacon, which now I'm intrigued by. If anyone's read Sex and Bacon, please let me know what it is.
Do you like bacon and eggs?
Of course I do. A match made in heaven.
Did you know that bacon and eggs, that combination came out of a PR stunt?
No.
Yes. Well, I got the information.
Do tell.
So there is this, the Beech Nut Packing Company. It was a producer of foods, including chewing gum, peanut butter, ketchup, and ham, so yada, yada, yada. It hired PR consultant Edward Bernays in the 1920s. They gave him his charge. They wanted him to increase consumer demand for bacon. Now, Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, and his agency researched American eating habits and found that most Americans were used to very light breakfasts. So Beech Nut's internal doctor suggested, so this whole company that was doing this whole thing suggested that a heavier breakfast would be healthier because the body loses energy during the night and it needs more energy during the day. So the doctor for this company basically put out a survey. It says survey in quotes to 5,000 other physicians. So then I kept researching what the survey was. And basically the survey said, it was one question. Is a hearty breakfast better than a light breakfast to replace energy lost by the body at night? Your answers were yes, no, and maybe. Well, surprise, surprise.
Wow.
Everyone checked yes. And so this doctor's thoughts for the company and this whole survey was circulated in newspapers around the country to what they call a resounding success. And many of them stated that bacon and eggs should be embodied with the breakfast. And as a result, the sale of bacon went up.
Capitalism at its finest.
Yeah, right?
I know. Wow. Yeah, I like bacon and eggs in any form, including carbonara. One of my favorite pasta dishes is carbonara, which involves bacon and eggs. And I think that probably came before those beech nut liars.
And you know what I'm sad about? I don't think I've ever had a really good carbonara since, I never had one when I used to eat meat. So that's sort of one of my regrets. Because, sometimes dishes will come and they don't always, particularly when I travel, they don't always say that there's bacon in it. And then I'll take a couple bites. I'm like, oh, this totally has bacon in it. And then I'm like, oh, this is so good.
This is why everybody eats it. Right. I mean, it's supposed to be pancetta or guanciale, but it's close enough. I use regular bacon. Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding. Hold on, Kate. Janice is here.
Janice finally showed up for work.
You hear that? Here comes her drink. That's her gin and tonic. She's stumbling. She's trying to hand me something.
Oh, what does she have?
What do you got, Janet? Oh, it's a quiz.
Yay!
She's got the shakes.
It's a quiz.
You hear the shakes? She's got them bad.
Oh, poor Janice.
All right.
Give that girl some bacon.
All right. So this is a very short quiz, but I thought it was going to be a fun one.
All right. I'm excited.
Right. Kate,
Rick.
Your first question.
Okay.
What is the percentage of times bacon and eggs are eaten together? A, 36% of the time. B, 72% of the time. I'm sorry, B, 71% of the time. C, 78% of the time.
By who? Just people in general? How would they know this? How do they know what I'm doing with bacon?
Surveys, Kate, surveys.
Well, in my life, it's less than 36%, so I'm going to have to go with that one.
They say 71.
They're lying. Because so many people are putting bacon in their salads. They're putting it in their, I don't know. But okay. All right. 71. All right.
All right. What percentage of bacon is cooked in a microwave across America? A, I know, right? You're already shaking your head. A, 15%. B, 17%. C, 21%.
B.
A, 15.
All right, good.
All right. Say there's a 75-pound pig. What percentage of the pig's weight is in bacon?
Oh.
A, 9%. B, 11%. C, 13%.
Do we assume this is in the U.S.?
Yes.
Say those numbers again.
A, 9%. B, 11%. C, 13%.
Those are all pretty close together.
Tricky. Janice is tricky, or else she just can't work with numbers higher than 20.
All right, I'm going to say B again.
Very good.
Yay!
11%. Yeah.
11%.
Some said 10%. It was generally hovered between 10 and 11%.
All right.
Okay, your final question, Kate, and this is not an advertisement for Wendy's.
Okay.
Have you had their Baconator?
No.
I'm going to read you what the Baconator is. A half pound of fresh, never frozen beef, American cheese, 6 pieces of crispy applewood smoked bacon, ketchup, and mayo. How many of these were sold at Wendy's in the first week they were on the market? A, 18 million. B, 21 million. C, 25 million.
A.
Oh, that would be 18 million is a good guess. 25 million.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Right?
That is a lot.
That is a lot.
Wow. Isn't that like, that's got to be like 8% of the population went out and bought one of those. That is a huge number. I'm sure it's freaking delicious.
Totally. It sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Again, why wouldn't I want it?
Oh my God. Have you heard of something called a bacon? I'm sorry. Was that the end of the quiz?
Yeah, that's it.
That was an excellent quiz. Thank you. Thank you, Janice.
Thank you, Janice.
Yes, awesome.
She's circling out again. Hold on. At the door.
Did she just spill that?
She did. All over the rug.
There's something called a bacon explosion, which is like meat, like beef that has like a whole bunch of bacon mushed into it. And then you like wrap it in bacon and grill it. And then there's somehow more bacon involved. It is just honestly a heart attack on a plate. But you know how desperately I want to try that.
That sounds wonderful, but awful.
Oh, exactly. It's the kind of thing that somebody grills and you have to have like 100 people over to eat it. You know, it's like a whole big thing. And you like weave the bacon strips around.
Weave.
Yeah, it is. It's literally a weave. It's exciting.
Oh, God.
All right. Let's talk about things that have been made bacon scented or flavored.
Oh, God. I actually stayed away from this. I saw like bacon milkshake and I couldn't go forward. I was trusting you would have this.
I will. But also, since you brought up the bacon milkshake, I will share something with you. One of our favorite chefs, Stephanie Izard, who runs Girl and the Goat, where you and I recently went, has a diner called the Little Goat Diner. And it's a classic diner in that everything is fatty and really great hangover foods and rich. And she does have a lot of goat and stuff on there. And she's got, interesting diner flair. She has Asian variations on things because she likes that in her cooking and whatever. So it's like a diner with a twist. And I have eaten there a few times. And one time I had a bacon fat milkshake.
Really?
Yeah, it was bacon fat and salted caramel, I think.
All right. Well, I'm thinking at least you had a top end one.
Yeah, exactly. And it was good. It was weird. Brad, I think, almost threw up when he tasted it. Awesome. Because it really did taste like bacon fat, and I think that really wasn't what he expected. Yeah, and so I don't think I could finish it, but it was interesting, and I'm glad I tried it, and more power to her, because she does weird things with ice cream on all these shows, and so I'm like, I want to try one of her weird meat ice cream things, and I tried it, and it was good enough that I'm glad I tried it, but I don't need another one.
I feel like that would be a really good shot that you get along with something else, like a shot glass of it would be perfect. That's how much
of it you want. That's a really good point. Like a couple of sips is exactly the right amount for that for me.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read you a list.
Please. All right. I'm going to brace.
This is in no order. So this is inedible and edible things. So the inedible things have the scent, I think. So there is bacon deodorant.
Oh, no.
Dental floss.
Hideous.
Toothpaste.
That's disgusting.
Soap.
No.
Lip balm. Band-Aids. Right. Socks, no big deal. Wallet. Didn't I get you a bacon wallet once? Because you missed bacon. I knew you missed bacon years ago. I got you some tacky plastic bacon wallet.
You did get me a bacon wallet. I'm pretty sure I still have it.
Mints. Games. There's a game called Baconopoly, for example. Bacon-scented candles. There's a bacon seaweed. Apparently, there is a seaweed that, when cooked, tastes like bacon. So that's what I need.
It's too.
But it grows that way, I think. Like, it actually is the seaweed. So yes, because you know I can't eat seaweed because it tastes like the sea. But if I had seaweed that tasted like bacon, bring it on.
Game on.
Cologne, soda, jelly beans, lollipops, massage oil.
It's disgusting.
Sunscreen. Vodka, bourbon. I have had bacon fat washed bourbon, and I think I might have had bacon vodka in a cocktail. The bacon vodka is probably just a flavoring, but bacon fat washed bourbon actually has bacon fat in it. It was delicious in the cocktail I had with it. It was really great. Chocolate. Well, chocolate bacon was a big thing with that Vosges company a few years ago. Coffee, beer, bacon-scented pillowcases, envelopes where you lick the thing and it tastes like bacon.
Kate.
Mayonnaise, ice cream, and I've saved my favorite two for last.
God.
One is a coffin.
What?
Somebody created a bacon coffin that is unclear whether or not it's a hoax, but it costs $29.99.99, so $3,000, and it's a genuinely a bacon casket made of 18-gauge casketed steel with a premium bacon exterior/interior, and includes a memorial and record tube, adjustable bed, swing bar handles, like blah blah, things that are happening in a casket apparently. But there is bacon in it, supposedly.
Oh, my God.
And here's my favorite. Bacon condoms and lube.
Oh, no.
So I had to look into this because they showed a picture of the bacon condom, and it's a condom that looks like bacon. I'm like, wait a minute. It can't be made of bacon. So sure enough, it's made of latex, but it's printed to look like bacon so that your meat looks like meat, apparently. And there is bacon scented and flavored lube to go along with it.
Hey, you have put more than one image that I would like in my brain.
Yeah, it's not
really
pretty.
Unfortunate. A lot of those are really unfortunate.
I know.
I'm still stuck on bacon breath mints. That was in the beginning of your list, and I'm still stuck on that one.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these things like Baconaise, bacon mayonnaise, doesn't have bacon in it. It's just got some smoke flavor. So a lot of it is smoke,
right?
And salt. But yeah.
I have a headache from that section.
I couldn't live with that information alone, so sorry.
The Maple Leaf Food Factory, they did a survey, and they found that 43% of people would rather have bacon than sex. They found that 23% of men ranked bacon as their favorite fragrance.
Oh.
And they said 23% of people surveyed wondered if their partners love bacon more than they do the actual person.
Well, the question of bacon or sex depends on the moment, I'm going to say.
I would agree. I could handle that.
Yeah. And while I love the smell, there's others I love more, but I certainly love it. I love it dearly, but I wouldn't pick it over, let's say, garlic and onions sauteing.
That's true. Did you know that every year there's something called the Bacon Report?
I did not.
Well, I'm going to read some highlights from the 2019 Bacon Report. This is put out by a fairly large global market research company.
Okay.
So this basically talks about trends, what they've seen, what they think they're going to see. They say that one of the areas that's trending in the bacon world is bacon convenience. What's gaining is pre-cooked bacon, which is positioning higher growth rates than uncooked bacon. Cooked bacon is about a $372 million market, but it's growing 3 times faster than the rate of uncooked bacon. Isn't that interesting? Convenience in bacon packaging, such as resealability, also is going to become something consumers expect more of. For example, bacons featuring individually wrapped serving sizes within a master package could take hold in the future, even as a 12-ounce bag in a 1 or 2 person household might need to be spread out over more than one meal, he says. And that's a result of the changing demographic, that there's not as many people within a family unit as there was many years ago.
And maybe people are more health conscious and want to limit their serving size.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Because, 2 strips of bacon.
It's just a bad tease.
Yeah. I first tried pre-cooked bacon years ago, and I think if you heat it in the microwave, it's better. But I think I tried it once, and I was good with that. I did not need to ever have it again.
All right, good. Good to know.
I mean, I guess if I were in a pinch and I were going on a picnic and I were making sandwiches in a park and I was at the grocery store and I was going straight, you know what I mean? I can imagine situations in which I might use it.
Sure. And people would have absolutely no time to cook. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. But it's so much less good, at least the ones I had, that it's not worth it.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah. They also said that restaurants are growing bacon options. In 2019 found that bacon...
I heard growing bacon, like there's plants where they're actually... restaurants are growing bacon on their rooftops. That would be amazing.
Right on their rooftop gardens.
Exactly. All right, sorry, go on.
Bacon is found on 71% of all restaurant menus, they say. It's not surprising that restaurants want to have bacon on their menus because 80% of customers say they love or like bacon. And bacon growth on menus is happening with all types. Bacon is up 3% on all menus during the past 4 years. It's up 2% on breakfast menus, up 4% on lunch menus, or 2% on dinner menus, and up 5% on all-day menus. As far as new product trends, wood-based flavor innovation is occurring. Hickory smoked bacon has been around forever, but bacon sellers are beginning to use different types of wood to flavor bacon. Cherry wood is picking up steam as unique, as is pecan wood. The use of specialty woods to flavor bacon adds to the novelty factor and can increase the odds that the product will be perceived to be more of a specialty item.
I can't tell the difference between applewood smoked and anything else. And I've had flights of bacon. There's a breakfast place not too far from here where you could do a flight of different flavors of bacon and stuff, which is fun. But I think they're also putting stuff on it. And the fancy restaurants will do bacon that's actually just like a big cube, a chunk of pork belly that they're calling bacon because that's where it comes from. But I don't care for that because pork belly has too much fat in it. And I know that a lot of people find that fat in pork belly to be a delicacy. It's delicious. You're supposed to eat it. But I just don't care for it, particularly like in steaks. I like lean meats. I don't like the meat fat that people like. So I've been disappointed when I've had fancy bacon in the past.
And its unfortunate name, pork belly.
Yeah.
Who wants to be served the belly of a pork?
Yeah, pork belly's on a lot of... In fact, at the ramen place we went to recently, the pork in my ramen is pork belly, but it's cut so thin that you don't get a mouthful of fat.
See, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, that's it from the 2019 Bacon Report. Well, folks, please, when you're done listening, rate and review us. Give us some stars, whatever platform you're listening to us on. Say some nice things about us. Helps people find us. And as always, thank you so, so much for listening.
And we hope that you too can bring home the bacon.